Howdy, folks. Since this is kind of your first real assignment, I wanted to give you just a step-by-step and kind of help you get started on it, because I understand that poetry is not everybody's thing, and figuring out how to do online classwork might be a little daunting. So I was going to read this first little part with you and kind of walk through the questions that I'm going to be asking at the end of this assignment. So this is selections from the poem called Half Hanged Mary by Margaret Atwood. It's sort of an introduction to our first long-term story that we're going to read called The Crucible, about the Salem witch trials. And so what I'm asking you to do is read and annotate this poem using the following steps and using the comment tool. So the big thing I want you to do with the comment tool and working on your digital annotation is to summarize each stanza in complete sentences and then underline or comment on structural techniques used in the poem. So if you need help on remembering what those structural techniques are in poetry, just scroll on down all the way to the bottom. And I've got a list of poetic structural elements. You can kind of remind yourself, oh yeah, here's what a stanza is. Here's what a metaphor is. This is what I'm looking for as I read through this story. So let's read through the first stanza together. Remember, stanza is like the first paragraph of this poem. So this stanza is nice because it's even titled. It's titled 7 p.m. Rumor was loose in the air, hunting for some neck to land on. And I was milking the cow, the barn door open to the sunset, and I didn't feel the aimed word hit and go in like a soft bullet. I didn't feel the smashed flesh closing over it like water over a thrown stone. I was hanged for living alone, for having blue eyes and sunburned skin, tattered skirts, few buttons, a weedy farm in my own name, and a surefire cure for warts. Oh yes, and breasts, and a sweet pear hidden in my body. Whenever there's talk of demons, these come in handy. Okay, so pretty cryptic poetry, but I can already start to see some beautiful language that Atwood is using, but on first read, I may not be entirely sure what's going on. So usually my process for poetry is to read one stanza first, and then go back through and try to recognize some of these things that the poet might be doing. So I'm not going to start with my summary because I don't know if I entirely understand what the stanza is about, but I bet as I go through and try to identify some of these structural elements, it's going to help me out. So the first one I noticed was rumor was loose in the air. I'm going to underline that because that's a metaphor. The idea of a rumor can't actually be loose on the air. It's not like we let a bird out of a cage and the rumor is flying around. But that's kind of what she's making it seem like. So I'm going to do metaphor for gossip. I'm going to put gossip in quotation marks. Because this, if you can see that, we'll go over it. There we go. It's a metaphor for gossip, because this idea of rumor, something started, some people are talking, and somehow this comes back to this narrator that we don't know much about. Okay, so rumors loose, hunting for some neck to land on, and I was milking the cow, the barn door open to the sunset. So we got some nice imagery. I'm going to do imagery. Just farm. It sounds like she's just like a farmhand or someone working on a farm. So I didn't feel the aimed word hit and go in like a soft bullet. Ooh, I like that. That's a really interesting simile. So I'm going to do simile and bullets and rumors, right? Because she's equating having this rumor, a cast on her, some accusation, we don't know what yet, but she's equating that to being shot. And she didn't know that she was shot, but she just was for some reason. So we still have a lot to figure out. I didn't feel the smashed flesh closing over like water over a stone throw. That's kind of a repetition of how this accusation, this rumor is affecting her, but she doesn't even know it yet. I didn't feel. So now as I'm going, I kind of get this. This is about an accusation of a woman who doesn't know what's happening yet. And then she comes out real hard. I was hanged for living alone. Like, whoa. I'm going to just put a comment in. Hanged? What? That seems like a pretty serious escalation. She goes from like having an accusation to all of a sudden she's very clearly stating that she got hung. And then she lists all the reasons why she thinks that she was hung. So she lived alone. She had blue eyes and sunburned skin, tattered skirts. So it sounds like she was a worker. So I might put this here. So she worked, which might be kind of telling because I'm starting to get to feel like this isn't a modern poem. This seems like it's a poem that's older. And a weedy farm in my own name. Okay, so we're talking about a farmer, a person who owns a farmer, and more specifically, it's a woman who owns a farmer. Like if she's talking about breasts, she's a woman, which is my guess was probably not common for the time. So I might say narrator was a woman, not common for the time. We don't know exactly what time this is going on, but I get the sense that it's a lot older. And whenever there's talk of demons, these come in handy. So she kind of feels like a scapegoat. Like because she's a woman, because she lived alone, because she did all these things not according to normal societal norms, that she's kind of a target. Target because of gender. Okay. Now that I've kind of gone through and taken a look at some of these metaphors and some of this imagery, I get a real good sense of what this first stanza is about, and I think I could summarize it. So, summary. The woman is accused, or let's say, woman who farms is accused of something and hanged. She feels singled out because of gender. Gender. All right. So there we go. That's how I would approach this poem, stanza by stanza. And I know this is your first attempt, so just do your best to go through this sort of line by line. It might take you a while to read. It's not a long poem, but the thing about poetry and kind of dense reading is that you have to go slowly in order to truly get it. So when you get done annotating the rest of the stanzas, I want you to come back down over here and just do your best to answer these three questions. And some of these can be really, really short, like identify. Remember, that doesn't have to be a long answer. Put your summaries together to explicitly state what's going on in the poem. Just tell me, like, on the surface level, what do you think happened? And then what point do you think Atwood is trying to make? And then lastly, this one's going to be a little bit longer of an answer. Use some of those verbs that we talked about and try to interpret the main point and support your answer here. We'll go over this in class, so don't, if you feel like you've got the answers wrong, that's okay. That's the first step to learning. I'm more worried about is can you make a valid first attempt at this textual development and analysis piece? All right. Good luck, folks.